I'm Dorinda Reisenhuber, and I'm the Education Coordinator for the NASA Oklahoma Space Grant Consortium. And today we are here at the Wright Brothers National Memorial and Museum. And behind me is a mock-up of the Wright Flyer. How incredible is that to be here? And as I promised you, we're coming to you in a new location for the next few weeks as we're going to be discovering all sorts of things that continue those aviation concepts. So, are you ready to come along and see what we can find out? Let's go. All right, engineers, so last week we learned about 4 of the properties of air. And when we were learning those 4 properties of air, we really focused on the 4th one, which was that air exerts pressure. And this concept was so important because we really needed to understand it as we went into our Bernoulli stations. And just in case you weren't here last week, or in case you don't remember, I actually have a demo to show you before we talk about what Bernoulli's principle is, which is what we discovered with all 6 of our experiments in Bernoulli stations. So you are going to need to grab a piece of paper. Any type of paper will do. It could be a recycled piece of paper, it could be a strip of paper, but you just need a piece of paper that has a little bit of length to it. Then the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to put this piece of paper just below your lips. And this edge is going to go into your skin. Now that is the only part of the paper that is going to go into your skin, just that edge. And it's going to go just below your lips. Does everybody see how I did that? Now here in just a second, I'm going to gently blow across the top of my piece of paper. So when I gently blow across the top of my piece of paper, what do you think is going to happen? What is your prediction or guess? Have you had time to think of it? All right. Now, I want you to share it with someone or something in the room with you. Did you do that? All right. So you've shared your prediction or guess, and now we are ready to experiment. All right. You guys ready? I'm going to get my piece of paper ready, and I'm going to blow gently across the top. Oh my goodness, what happened? Did you see what happened when I gently blew across the top of my piece of paper? It lifted! And what just happened? Well, I blew really fast air across the top of my piece of paper. And when I blew that really fast air across the top of my piece of paper, we decreased the air pressure. Okay, that's just what happens. That's what Bernoulli's principle tells us. But below, we were not speeding up the air. It was slower air, which means that slower air had greater pressure. And that greater pressure pushed that piece of paper up or lifted that piece of paper up and created what we call lift. Oh my goodness, we just discovered another way we can see Bernoulli's principle. And I have yet another one to show you. So for this part, you're going to need the piece of paper. You can use that piece of paper you just used for experimentation. You're also going to need some sort of string, yarn, whatever you may choose, or it could be fishing line. So either one of these will work just fine, but you only need one. You're also going to need a pair of scissors. Scissors are very important scientific tools, and you will need it for this experiment. You're also going to need a straw. And it can be a bendy straw, it can be a straight straw, it really doesn't matter. This is gonna work just fine, but you do need a whole straw. You're also gonna need some tape. Very, very important, because it would be very difficult to do this very first step without your tape. And you can use any kind of tape. So if you don't have Scotch tape at home, you can use masking tape, painter's tape, duct tape, packing tape, whatever you have on hand, you can use it. Okay. So the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of paper and we're going to kind of make a wing shape. Okay, so you see how I kind of made a wing shape with my piece of paper, and I'm putting my edges together. Now you'll notice I'm not creasing anything. You will not want to crease anything. You're gently laying over the edges so that they meet each other. All right. And we are going to tape all those edges. I'm going to put like 3 pieces of tape, and that is perfect. And I have a great wing just like this. Now the next thing that we're gonna need to do is we're gonna poke a hole through the top. Now you can do this a variety of ways. If you have a pencil, you can just take that and poke it really quickly. I don't have one up right here, but I happen to have a paper clip. So I'm gonna use my paper clip to poke a really quick hole. Now when I make this hole, I'm gonna want to go as close, well, not all the way to the front, but close to the front. And I'm gonna want to do, about 1/5 back from the leading edge of my wing. And I'm gonna wanna try to be as centered as possible. Now, if I wanted to do this exact and make my experimentation as scientifically accurate as possible, I could actually measure and make sure I was doing that right. But just in case you don't have a ruler, you can do it without that, and I'm going to demonstrate that. So I'm gonna just kind of eyeball where about halfway is and about 1/5 back of the paper from the front of the wing. And I'm just gonna kind of make a hole in there that's going to allow me to put my straw through here in a minute after I cut them. So now I have a hole that goes all the way through my piece of paper. So it's on both sides. And I made that hole go all the way through. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this straw and I'm going to cut it into 3 pieces. Now I want one long length. So I made a really long length. So I cut about 2/3 of it off for my long length. And then I'm gonna cut this last third into halves. All right, so now that I have that done, I'm gonna take my piece of straw and I'm going to stick it through the hole in the top of my piece of paper, just like so. Then I'm going to put that hole through my piece of paper, the straw through the other hole on the other side of the piece of paper. And I'm gonna try not to crease it too much. And if I do, I can just push it back out. But I want it to still look like a wing, just like this. So does everybody see that? So I now have a straw which is going all the way through. It's not too far from my leading edge, and it's about 1/5 back, maybe not quite that far back. Excellent. The next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to take either my piece of string or my fishing line. And for this, I'm actually going to use my fishing line today. And I'm going to cut a length of string that's about the length of my arms when I stretch them out, or the span of my arms. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let gravity work with me, and I'm going to simply thread this through one by one. All right, so it is all the way through my straw. So now my wing is on a string or a fishing line. And the next thing I'm going to do is I love to experiment this. When I make these, I will experiment with it for days. I love all the different things that I can do with this wing. And in fact, we're going to take it to the next level here in just a minute. So you'll see why this is so important. I'm going to tie one of my pieces of straw, my short pieces of straw, onto each end. So for that, I'm just going to stick this end through this small piece of straw, and then I'm just going to tie, and however you want to tie it, you can even tape it if you wanted to, if tying was a little bit hard. And I'm going to tie it just like so. So now I have a handle on one side, and then I'm going to take and put the handle on the other side. And so now I've got my second handle, and I'm going to do the same thing. I just threaded it through, and I'm going to tie it off with a knot. All right, so now I have my wing on a string. So let me move my table forward towards you guys for just a second so that you can see, so that I can spin. I might have to move it just a little bit more so you can see me a little bit better. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to spin around in a circle. Are you guys ready? Oh my goodness, what happens is I'm spinning around in a circle? My wing went up in the air, didn't it? It went up. And if I could get going really fast, it would go up super high. Now there's something else that I can do so I won't get so dizzy like I just did, and that is I can use a fan. So I'm going to turn on my handy dandy fan, and I'm going to use that so you guys can see what happens. So before I turn on my fan, first let's see that. Okay, before I turn on my fan, it's just like this. It's down, isn't it? So now I'm going to turn on my fan. Okay. And let's turn that up. There we go. Now what happens? Oh my goodness, do you see that? My wing is going up in the air and it's lifting. That is incredible. So what just happened? Well, would you believe that we just applied Bernoulli's principle yet again in a different way? Well, you see, because of the way a wing is shaped, it allows for lift, because Bernoulli's principle tells us that when you speed up the air, you create lower pressure. But the air that's not sped up has greater pressure. So as the air is coming across this wing, as you can see across the top, it's curved. Across the bottom, it's pretty flat, okay? So as the air comes across the top of this wing, its pathway is being constricted. And what we know is that when you constrict the air, it speeds it up. And when you speed it up, it creates lower pressure. But below, it's not constricting that path. Do you see how it's kind of just a flat pathway straight across? And so that air is slower than the air above it, which is creating greater pressure and creates that lift. Oh my goodness! We just discovered how Bernoulli's principle is linked to a wing. You guys are such smart engineers. So let's review what we just learned. Let's look at a real-world example of lift in action by using my hang gliding flight. Now you'll notice as I'm running into the wind and that air is going across the top of that wing, it is creating lower pressure. But below there's greater pressure, which is why you have that lift, and I'm able to glide through the air. Wow! Not only does it apply to an airplane, but it also applies to a hang glider. Bernoulli's principle is pretty incredible. Now that we understand how Bernoulli's principle is linked to the shape of a wing, let's look at how weight affects the wing's ability to lift. So come on, let's try out a hands-on experiment. All right, aerospace engineers, so now that we understand lift and how Bernoulli's principle is related to the shape of a wing and allows a plane to lift or go up in the air, now we're going to look at a force, which is what we call a counterforce, and it works against lift, okay? And I wonder what that could be. Well, let's see, I have some things up here. I have some paper clips, and we're going to use them as weight. We're going to see how weight affects lift. So let's check this out. I have two different sizes of paper clips, and I'm just going to choose one size to use. So for today, I'm going to go ahead and use my giant paper clips. And the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to take my wing on a string that we just made a few minutes ago, and I'm going to slowly add weight to it, and I'm going to use this awesome fan to see how it affects it when I add weight to it. So I'm going to start with two paper clips to begin with and see how two paper clips affect how high or it will go, and I'm going to see if I can get it to the point where it will no longer lift. Do you think I can do that? You think I can figure out at what point I need to have so many paper clips on it that it will not lift anymore? Let's see what happens. We saw how high it would lift before. So now I have two paper clips on it. And it's going decent high, but I'm gonna go ahead and raise up my speed because I had it on full speed before. There we go. And I'm gonna keep that the same. I wanna keep that variable the same. And as you may notice, my straw has gone out of my piece of paper. So I'm going to fix that really quickly, and I'm going to step out of the path of my wind to do that. And I'm just going to take 2 pieces of tape, and I'm going to make it where that straw will stay attached to my piece of paper. So that way it'll still move on here. And then you can see that I got my handles a little tangled up. So we're going to untangle those real quick. Okay, so I have it just like so. So you can see that our wing is lifting. So I didn't zero out that lift or make it where it couldn't lift yet. So let's see how many more paper clips I need to add. Makes it a little hard in this wind tunnel to experiment, doesn't it? Now I'm going to add 2 more. So that's going to give me a total of 4. 2 plus 2 is 4. So now, let's see. Is it lifting as high? No. So I'm beginning to affect how my wing is lifting with weight or with the paper clips. Now let's add, oh, it went up again, didn't it? I'm going to add 2 more paper clips and see what happens. Okay, now let's see what happens. Oh, it's not going up quite as high, is it? Okay, it's getting heavier. Let's see if we can add a few more, and let's see what happens then. Now I'm going to add 2 more, so 6 plus 2 is 8, or 4 on the top, 4 on the bottom equals 8. Excellent. And then I'm going to take my wing, and I'm getting it all tangled up in here, aren't I? Okay, let's see if I can't untangle this part. Well, I may just leave that on there and grab a new paper clip. Okay, so that's not going to affect the weight. I still only have 8 paper clips on it. I just made my handle on the bottom paper. Oh, look at that. Yeah, it's kind of bouncing and having a hard time, isn't it? Okay, let's try again and add some more. So I've got 8, and I'm going to add 2 more. So 8 plus 2 is 10. So with those 10, let's see what happens. Oh, it's getting harder. Oh no, it looks like I might have done it, huh? I think I put way too much weight. Now let's see. I have 10 on there, and I added 2 at a time. So if I take 1 off, okay, it's going up. Now if I add that 1 back, what happens? Okay. It's still not lifting. So, now that we can get this wind tunnel out of the way so you can hear me better. So we saw that 10 paper clips was a perfect amount of weight where my wing would no longer lift. And do you know what that's called when we have no more lift of our wing? It's called zero lift or zeroing out lift. So how does this apply to the real world? Well, I told you before, one of the forces acting upon a plane is lift, okay, and that causes it to go up. But there's a counterforce acting on it going downwards, and that is weight. And that is why it is so important that the pilot calculates weight before they fly the plane. The pilot has to consider the plane that they have, how much that plane weighs, how much the people weigh that are going to be in the plane, how much the luggage weighs, and yes, this is a great chance for you to teach your parents why it's so important not to pack too heavy and why they charge so much for heavy bags. Because too much weight is no good on the plane, and we want to make sure we have just the perfect amount of weight for the right kind of lift. Excellent. Also, depending on where that weight is located in the plane, it has a certain amount of value. So that's also factored into that. But you know what? We'll look at that next week when we're going to look at the balance of an airplane. So today, we learned that lift is the force which helps the plane go up, and weight is a force acting upon it which pushes against it. And we need to have both of those forces balanced in order for our plane to fly. Okay, well, I don't know about you, but I'm just a little bit curious about how the size of the paper clips will change how many paper clips are needed to zero out lift or make it where the swing will not lift in the air. I think I've got something up here that could help with solve my wonderment. And I have some small paper clips. Now, I wonder, do you think it'll take more paper clips or fewer paper clips of the small paper clips, so these little ones right here, than my big ones? All right, see the size difference? There's a big difference in that. So do you think it'll take more or fewer paper clips? I wonder. Well, let's see. So if I do just like I did before, and I am going to put 2 paper clips on here to get started. Now I'm going to add my air source or my wind, which is my box fan. And I'm going to see what happens. Okay, so it's still lifting, isn't it? It's lifting up. And I'm going to go ahead and put this at full speed. I can tell it's not at full speed. Excellent. So I've got 2 on there, and it's still lifting pretty decent. So let's add 2 more, and I'm going to make sure I only use my small paper clips. So I've got 2 on there. If I add 2 more, 2 plus 2 is 4. And let's see. All right, with 4 paper clips, it is raising up, but it's starting to not raise as high. So let's see what happens when I add 2 more. So 4 plus 2 is 6. So now I've got 6 paper clips on here. And it's still lifting. It's starting to bobble a little bit, isn't it? But it's still lifting. So let's add 2 more paper clips. So I've got 6 plus 2 is going to give me 8. And again, it's bobbling up and down a little bit, isn't it? But it is still lifting, but it is starting to go down lower and not lift as much. So my weight is definitely affecting it. So I have 8, or 4 on each side, so 4 plus 4 is 8. And I'm going to add 1 more, which is now going to give me 5 on each side. So 5 plus 5 is 10. All right. How is 10 affecting it? Yeah, you can tell it's affecting that ability to lift. But 10 is where I ended last time, and it wouldn't lift anymore with those big paper clips. So, is it taking me more paper clips so far? Well, let's see. So if I've got 10 on so far, I'm going to put 2 more on. So 10 plus 2 is 12, or I've got 6 on each side. So 6 plus 6 is 12, or 6 times 2 is 12. Oh my goodness, look at all the great math we're doing today. And it's still lifting. Oh my goodness, it's taking me more paper clips of the little ones. And I've got 2 more. So that is going to give me 12 plus 2 is 14, or 7 times 2, because 7 on 2 different sides gives me 14. Oh, I think we're getting very close. What do you think? Let's try 2 more. Now we have 2 plus 14, so that gives me 16, or I have 8 on each side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times 2 is 16, or 8 plus 8 is 16. And it's affecting it, but it's actually going back up a little bit, isn't it? But let's see, sometimes that's my angle of attack. We'll affect that just a little bit too. So I'm adding 2 more, so I have 18 plus 2. That's going to give me 20. And, oh, it's still coming up, isn't it? So let's see what it's going to take to zero out my lift. So I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 18 so far. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 more on each side, so 4. So that's actually going to give me 22 paper clips. let's see if we can zero out this lift with 22 paper clips. All right. So, it's struggling just a little bit, isn't it? So let's try adding 4 more. So that'll give us 26. Oh, it's going down more. Okay, so we're at 26 paper clips. So let's see if we add 27, 28, 29, and 30. So 26 plus 4 gives me 30. And, it's really struggling, isn't it? It's going all over the place. That weight is all unbalanced on it. Oh my goodness. And once it kind of worked its way out, it's not lifting anymore, is it? I zeroed out lift. So it took us 30 of the small paper clips to zero out lift. So I now know that if I have smaller items, it's going to take more of them to zero out the lift than bigger items. Wow! Lots of awesome uncovering of concepts. All right, aerospace engineers, I am here finishing out this segment today in the birthplace of flight here in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. And this is the area out here in the Outer Banks where the Wright brothers did all of their experimentation and discovered what worked in flight. And you today were just like the Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur, smart engineers just as they were. You took pieces of paper, straw, and fishing line, and you discovered how the shape of the wing or an airfoil is linked to Bernoulli's principle and why an airplane can lift, which allows it to fly. So that was the first force you learned today. Then you took it one step further and you understood how weight could counteract the ability of lift and cause it to go down. So lift and weight being counterbalances. So smart. Well, guys, our adventure does not end here today. You see, I won't be doing openers and closers from here, but you will be seeing in the next few weeks, you'll be seeing segments and parts of our adventure out here. And our adventure has included hang gliding lessons, jumping out of an airplane, and it is also included getting to do a flight lesson over Kitty Hawk in crosswinds. Oh my goodness. You guys are in for an incredible treat in the next few weeks as we do more hands-on experimentation and combine it with real live video of these concepts applied in real life. Well, until then, race you to the moon.